What is up, everyone? Welcome into our first NFL DFS DraftKings Picks video. This is obviously for week one. If you guys do watch this channel, you know that the cash process with Ben and AC has already come out. I am your host, Justin Bales, along with the cash goat himself, Ben, and our projections man, Sam. How are you guys doing for this slate?
Go ahead, Sam. I'm
Benjamin?
doing good. We all know how I'm doing. We all know how I'm doing. I've already been on one NFL video. I'm ready to get into this season. So I want to hear from you, Sam. I haven't heard from you other than the golf pods. But you and I ourselves haven't done a pod together in a while.
I know. I have to say, not that I don't love, hanging with you two here, Bales, but I'm so hyped for our Sunday stream, Ben. I can't even take my excitement for one more second. It's going to be electric. I'm good. I was kind of busy for a while, like I always am. As Ben knows, I'm always traveling, which is annoying, but I'm now really hyped. I'm ready for this stuff to get started. I think I was reading something the other day, and I agree with, I think week one, people tend to be like hesitant because there's so much randomness and like, oh, we don't know the teams. I think that's like my mindset is like, it makes me want to play more and like embrace the volatility better than people will, because there's not a huge sample size or any sample size to go off of. So I think these first couple weeks are fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot going on just because you don't necessarily know snap counts, everything like that. But a lot of advantage that we can take by just looking at all of our research, using everything that we have. So before we get in, I just want to break down how this podcast is kind of going to go, because it's the same podcast that we've been doing, but it's a new format. We're just going to head to position by position, outline some of our favorite guys, guys that we want to pivot to in tournaments, guys that we don't want to use, stuff like that, and then move to stacks at the end. Prior to getting into that, I do want to say, if you want all of our free content, head over to dfskarma.com. We will have boatloads of it from multiple writers. If you want to go to Bet Karma for all things sports betting, we have everything NFL for that with tons of great tools. As always, Sam is killing the projections, so go check them out at dfskarma.com as well. You'll be able to click everything that you need in the description below. So just go ahead and click the show more. And then before we get started, if you enjoy our content, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our content. I know we'll be putting out a bunch of betting stuff, which is obviously time sensitive, and then more stuff for this, like NFL pods. And then obviously we have our MLBs, which will head right into NBA when that season starts as well. And go ahead and give us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Anyone that you're interested in, if you have any questions, we will be on throughout the week to answer literally everything. But I don't want to bore you guys anymore. So let's jump right into position by position. We will start at quarterbacks, and I'm going to switch this up a bit. I'm sure everyone thought I was going to start with Ben. I'm not. Sam, hit us with your favorite quarterbacks.
This is actually that was nice, because one of my quarterbacks I like a lot this week is someone that, like Ben especially knows, I cannot stand. I always think he's overrated, but I really like Kirk Cousins. I like that number one, obviously, I don't think anyone's expecting the Bengals D to really be that much improved, if at all. And I just think that with Jefferson and Thielen, and I'll get to it later also, I just think Kirk, I will say, I give a lot of crap to sometimes, and I think it's the coaching where sometimes it just feels like Zimmer runs the ball game and Kirk doesn't really throw a lot, but he is pretty efficient. A lot of the stats I'm referencing here and that are on our website right now are stats in the past season. I mean, last year, Kirk's stats are better than even I thought, in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt, adjusted completion percentage, and then dropbacks per game. So I like Kirk. Other ones I like, I don't need to talk as much because I think a lot of people obviously like Josh Allen. The only thing I do worry, if he gets, quarterbacks don't ever get quote unquote really chalky, I think, but the Pittsburgh defense is not like it's bad. So if you were to get really high up, I may consider lowering exposure or fading. I haven't decided that yet, but he's just such a stud and coming off such a great year. And I think people are really high on the Bills. The last one I'll go with, I expect him to be higher owned than I think that I have right now. I have him right now at like 2 to 3%, but I do like Matt Ryan a lot. I don't think the Eagles really have much to stop, someone like Ridley, Kyle Pitts, we obviously haven't seen, but he's supposed to be a freak of nature. And I just think that team, because they don't have any defense either, should be throwing a lot, as Matt Ryan normally does. So those are my three guys I'm probably going to put in, majority of my lineups.
I like it. I think those are some good calls. Ben, I'll head to you. Who are you looking at here?
Yeah, so before I give my quarterbacks, now that you guys are in the habit of listening to this, like the video on YouTube. Our goal was 100 on the cash process. We're at 163 right now, I think. Crushing that.
Killed it.
So I'm going to set the goal at
Wow.
150 for this, since
No,
these are separate.
250.
Well, they're separate shows. They're separate shows.
Quarter of 1,000 we want.
Separate shows.
Yeah.
So we'll say 150 for week 1 on this, which is a 50% or 50 higher than what I wanted on the other video. So like the video, but yeah. So my favorite quarterbacks, since this is like more open ended and more game theory centric, I'm not gonna get on here and just talk about the cash game plays. So I'm gonna go with number 1 for me, Matt Ryan. Sam just mentioned him, but this is the Eagles are a team we've targeted through the air many times the last few seasons, right? Like it's a pass funnel. They have a really good defensive line. They're generally not as good in the secondary. There's a good chance the Falcons could lead the league in pass attempts. I mean, they're coming into the season with Mike Davis and Wayne Gallman, and at running back, they obviously have better passing game weapons. Matt Ryan always throws the ball a lot, especially at home. So I really like Matt Ryan in that spot, and a lot of people are going to be on Jalen Hurts, so that's a little bit of leverage. Outside of him, Ryan Tannehill, really good spot at home. Discussed this on the cash process with AC, but I mean, Arizona's secondary already looks so bad on paper, losing Malcolm Butler. They're all really small, too, which obviously is good for A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Those are two big receivers. New offensive coordinator, so we'll see what they do, but I think it would make sense for them to come out and pass here in this game. And then number 3 for me, I mean, you can go a lot of ways here. Kind of tough. I'm probably going to go with, I think I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. I wanted to pick Mac Jones, but I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. At home, you get the double revenge because you get the Sam Darnold and the Robbie Anderson revenge. But I think people, like I saw people talking up the Jets defense on Twitter as a play for this week. I think the Panthers are good, man. Their offense is loaded with weapons. I think they're going to be aggressive. I do think Darnold's better than Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater's more of just a game manager. I think Darnold can be good. We haven't seen what he can do with an offense that actually is trying to put weapons around him. He's never had weapons like this. I think the Panthers in general are going to be a good team. So I definitely like him at 5K on DraftKings this week.
Yep, I think that is a great call. You guys have pretty much touched on this extremely well. The 3 that I had were 1, Ryan Tannehill. I feel like he's just going way overlooked. I remember last year, early in the season, I was talking about him on this podcast, and people were kind of making fun of it, saying he has no upside, which just isn't the case anymore. He does in that offense. It's fantastic. Matchup against Arizona, I like it. Number 2, on the opposite side of Matt Ryan, I do really like Jalen Hurts. I also think he's going to be one of the higher owned quarterbacks on the slate, but I think for good reason. It's a good matchup. They're slight underdogs. He obviously has the rushing upside. So kind of everything just centering out for Jalen Hurts in a really good way. And then number 3, Ben just discussed him, but Sam Darnold at 5,000 is just a ridiculous price tag. I even think for the matchup, it's all great. Carolina's offense is going to be very good. I have no issues whatsoever with literally anything that they're doing offensively. And I don't believe that they're going to have the defense at this point to really just shut down opposing offenses to the point where they're not going to be using Darnold's arm or anything. So for 5,000, I do think that he's in a great spot. I guess we can just move quickly to the tournament pivots at this position. So Sam, who are you pivoting? Just assuming that the cash are guys like, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. We can even throw Jalen Hurts in there. Just pivot off of someone like that.
I don't know. This one probably could burn me. I just like it mainly because of the matchup and kind of something to prove. I don't mind Jimmy G at 5,500. I'm not saying Jimmy is like this mega upside 6 touchdown type guy, but I think the matchup is great, and I like the weapons. I like that he, I think we probably all, I know Ben does at least. I mean, Trey Lance is a stud. He'll probably maybe being the starter after that he's healed that injury. But for right now, I like this spot for Jimmy. No one ever plays him because he doesn't have that, Mahomes-esque ceiling. But I think that could be an interesting if he stays low and that, he has Brandon Iuke, who's a stud, who I love this week, Debo, Kittle, obviously. And I think that is someone that will be kind of lost in the mix with the other guys around him.
Ben, who are you looking at to pivot to?
Yeah, I had two guys I was really considering for this, and I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. I don't think he's going to be very highly owned. There's been so much talk. Like, I went back and looked at a lot of box scores for week 1 earlier this week, and it's just like random stuff happens that we don't know is going to happen, right? So, obviously, Seattle was super pass heavy at the beginning of last season. They tailed off. It sounds like they want to be pass heavy again. I haven't heard really any Seahawks talk for this week. I know it's only Wednesday, but I haven't heard many people talking about the Seahawks. So I'll buy into the narrative of them throwing the ball a little bit more and play Wilson in tournaments.
I like that. I will take mine with Kyler Murray. Obviously, he won't get literally no ownership, but with Josh Allen being slightly cheaper, I would assume most people go there. But Murray, I mean, is small underdog, which suggests that he could throw more or less the entire time. They don't really have the dominant running backs to the point where I'm actually worried about them stealing stuff from Kyler Murray. And then obviously, I think the big thing that you have to look at is when the season started last year, Murray, I believe, had 170, a little over 170 rush yards in the first 2 games. And then he got banged up a little bit and he kind of stopped running the ball nearly as much. I would expect him to get back to that early on the season when he's fully healthy. And then maybe it tails off a little bit because he's one of the smaller quarterbacks. But assuming that he's doing that early in the season, his ceiling is basically as high as anyone on this entire slate. And it's not like you're getting him cheap at 7,600, but at the same time, it's just a really, really good spot in my opinion. So Kyler Murray
I love that call because Mahomes is right above him and Josh Allen's right below. I agree. I think he'll go overlooked just because of that. I think it's a great call.
Yep, that's also what I was thinking of. And then Sam, go ahead and start us off with your DraftKings bust for this week.
I don't know. I was thinking about this one. It's kind of hard. I mean, I always try to find someone who I think could get a little ownership. I don't know how much he will, but I am not playing Ben Roethlisberger. I get that game could shoot out, but I think it's not that he couldn't do well. And even though he's older, I'm not even saying he's going to be bad, but there's just other guys. Like I would just rather have Matt Ryan. I'd rather even play Baker or Burrow or Cousins above him. So yeah, I'm not playing any Ben.
Ben, who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Herbert. Pains me to do that because I like their offense so much, but I don't know, man. On the road, I think Washington has the best defense in football. It's just a tough spot. So I'm probably not going to have any Herbert this week.
Yeah, you guys just made that so tough. Ben Roethlisberger was my 1. Justin Herbert was my 2. So I will fall down to my 3, Tua Tagovailoa. I think that Tua is extremely good. Most people are sleeping on him. I absolutely love him. I think what he did last year as a rookie coming back from injury was incredible. With that being said, I would expect New England to get back to their more or less elite defensive ways. And I just don't think this is the spot to use Tua in. I know he's cheap. I feel like we're going to get a nice discount next week after he struggles a little bit against New England. And I think just waiting a week on him is going to do wonders. So that does it for quarterback. We can move on to running back. I will switch things up a bit. And Ben, why don't you start with your favorite running backs?
Yeah, so like I said, it's not the cash process, so I'm not going to get on here and talk about Christian McCaffrey all day. Obvious that you want to play him, you'll be playing him in cash games. I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara and Antonio Gibson as my 2 favorites. Obviously, I love to play Kamara when Michael Thomas is out. He's out again. A lot of people have cited Winston not throwing to running backs a lot, but he's never had Alvin Kamara on his team, right? I just think it's a different situation. It's obviously a different offense in New Orleans. Sean Payton knows to get the ball to Kamara, especially when Thomas is out. Gibson's just too cheap. It's a tough matchup, certainly, but I just think he's going to be so involved. He's going to get so many touches. I love him at 5,900 on DraftKings. For my third guy, I think I'm going to take Chris Carson, fitting with my Seahawks theme. He's only 5,900. I talked about him briefly on the cash process, or maybe Anthony did. I can't remember, but that's too cheap for him, and that's someone that we saw has catching capability last season when they actually choose to throw to him. So I think him and Gibson both are too cheap under 6K.
I like those calls. They're actually some of my favorite as well. So trying to re-up some other stuff and see where I'm at here. Sam.
Yeah, I really think Chris Carson maybe I think looking at, that just call it value, price. I think Chris Carson's like one of the best running back values on the whole slate. I don't know why he's 5,900. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me, but I like Kamara. I actually really like Aaron Jones. I think that, that lines me a lot, obviously, since Rodgers is officially back. And I don't think that, obviously, I think a lot of the ownership that goes to that game will obviously be Rodgers, Devontae Adams, maybe Tanya or MVS or something. But Aaron Jones, I'm also totally just going to sound like an absolute dummy if this is wrong. Jamal Williams is not on the team anymore, right? It's just him and A.J. Dillon.
He's in Detroit.
Yeah, and then so it's A.J. Dillon the backup?
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, I just think Aaron Jones should have a decent amount of the workload. I think that he does catch passes, obviously, and so I think if he gets, last year, I think he was averaging around 4 to 5 targets a game. So I think he's a strong play and pivot us off, obviously, on Adams. I guess since Ben took 2 of mine, I'll say, we talked about this. I like Mike Davis at 5,400. I don't know. None of us know yet, how much involvement he'll have in the passing game with Matt Ryan. Bales looked up to me before that Matt Ryan has used running backs for targets in the past. So I just think that Mike Davis just has such a strong floor with his receiving game. And I know, I agree with Ben that the Philly defensive line is good, but I think just at that price, it's not like he has to smash because he's 8,000 or higher. So those are probably my my other 2 favorites.
Yeah, you guys really nailed some great options. I feel like if you drop under 6K, it makes a lot of sense with guys like Antonio Gibson, Chris Carson. I really just want to hammer down, and I'm going to use one of my 3 on Antonio Gibson. I think he is in for an elite season. If he's not getting the job done on the ground, which I think generally he will, he's going to be a massive part in the passing attack. So Antonio Gibson is one of my favorite plays on the slate. I don't want to jump on anyone, obviously. Christian McCaffrey, we talked about. You can use Dalvin Cook, obviously, Alvin Kamara. If you can spend up for any of those guys, they're all great plays. I'm going to go at 6'2", Joe Mixon. I feel like makes a really good option. I don't necessarily love that they have an implied total of basically 20 points, only slightly higher than that. But if you look at what Mixon was doing last season, he's literally a workhorse that you're getting for only 6,200 compared to, guys like Dalvin Cook and McCaffrey over 9,000. Talent is nowhere even close to the same. I don't think that anyone should be mistaking that. But at 6,200, if you're looking at 20 plus touches, I mean, it is a really good spot at that point. And then I'm going to get a little weirder here, especially because you have for the guys at 5,900 that make such great options. But if you drop down 100 more, specifically looking at DraftKings tournaments here, Raheem Mostert, I am a huge fan of him. He has massive big play potential. I think that San Fran is going to absolutely destroy Detroit. And early in the season is when I believe that you should be using someone like Mostert, just because of the fact that Trey Sermon probably isn't going to take on his biggest role in the first few weeks. As the season progresses, Sermon's role probably grows a little bit. But for now, I would assume that Mostert is the RB1 and going to get plenty of snaps. And if that's the case, I'll definitely take him against a weak Detroit defense in a game where I believe they're a touchdown favorite. So they should be running quite a bit towards the end of it. Moving to the GPP plays, though, at running back. Ben, what specific pivots are you looking at here?
Yeah, I can kind of parlay my GPP play and fade into the same thing here because they're very closely priced. My favorite tournament play is Miles Sanders at 6,500. I don't think anyone's going to play Miles Sanders. Apparently, no. Coming into last season, everyone loved Miles Sanders, right? That's all anyone would talk about. Like, oh, Miles Sanders, he's going to be so good. He's going to get all the work, whatever. He had some injuries. Things just didn't pan out. Doug Peterson's an idiot. It's kind of the standard stuff. Just didn't work out. Now, no one wants to play Miles Sanders. No one likes Miles Sanders. I just drafted him in like the 4th round, 5th round of one of my drafts the other day. He's still the lead back, right? They only have Boston Scott and Gainwell behind him. I think Gainwell will be good, like as the season goes on. Boston Scott's pass catcher, basically. Miles Sanders is going to dominate the early down work. Atlanta's a team that we like to target running backs against. I think that game's going to shoot out. Everyone's playing Hurts, so no one's going to look at Miles Sanders. So I really want to play a lot of Miles Sanders in tournaments at 6,500. And then my fade is going to be very closely priced to him. It's James Robinson. He's 6,400. I don't like that game at all. Don't want to trust Urban Meyer. Outside of maybe Marvin Jones at receiver, I'm probably not touching anything in that game. I think it's a gross game, so I'm just going to play Miles Sanders for 100 more than James Robinson.
That's interesting. I don't hate James Robinson, but I feel like specifically tournament because you can't trust Urban Meyer for literally anything. I feel like he's just going to ride Carlos Hyde for no reason at all. But Sam, what pivot are you? I guess what pivot and fade are you looking at here?
My fade, and it's not even a troll you Bales, was I think Mixon's getting popular, so I just would rather play the Bengals passing game. It's funny because I came into this pod like very set on why I want to fade Mixon, and you gave me a lot of reasons why I'm slightly reconsidering because I agree with everything and the volume is definitely there. I just feel like in a game where I've seen it before, I think there's coach speak about he wants to be on the field, wants him on the field all the time and everything, but I just feel like, the Bengals defense is bad as last year and they're down quick. I mean, they just might be throwing a ton. Not that he's not ever involved, but I think I just would rather play, especially to get popular. My pivot is Chase Edmonds, only 4,600. I know he's not, the bell cow, but last year in a timeshare, and I know Kyler runs a lot. I mean, he averaged 3 to 4 high value touches which as a reminder is any targets, rushing attempts inside the 10 per game. And he wasn't even a lead back. He is great in the receiving game. I like that he knows his offense because I know they have a couple running backs now, but I think that he's a kind of guy who's very risky, but a good one for GVP where, he could easily shoot 3 points to do nothing, but he has a ceiling where he can catch a lot of balls and can definitely get in the end zone. So I think he'll have more opportunities this year. And so that's my pivot. And he's super cheap too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good pivot. I really like Chase Edmonds this week. I think my big issue is that I don't necessarily think that he's going to be like the goal line back or anything. Obviously, they gave Kenyon Drake the ball inside the 5 last year, and James Conner is more of that, bigger plotting running back. Mm-hmm. So I feel like he probably just takes that over. But in the game environment, I agree. Chase Edmonds is good. I think that my number one pivot, obviously, I already talked about, is Raheem Mostert, just because guys like Chris Carson and Antonio Gibson are projecting for some ownership. I also do think that it's really important at this point to mention that, again, this is recorded on Wednesday. If more chatter comes about Joe Mixon throughout the week and his ownership goes up, which very realistically, just for his price and a workhorse back, that could happen. I don't want to play chalk Joe Mixon. I don't think that I would even consider doing that. So I guess that's just an important thing that we're recording this midday on Wednesday. So then just another GPP option that I'm just solely trying to get in the good graces of Anthony at this point. In all seriousness, Nick Chubb is going completely overlooked. I think a lot of people are nervous that they're relatively sizable underdogs and they don't know how Chubb's going to play into that. But if you look at him late last season, especially in the playoffs, he had plenty of targets. We know the season prior that he can catch the ball. He had plenty of targets and catches in that season. It's just Kareem Hunt obviously took over a lot of that. But after, paying up for Nick Chubb to very clearly be a lead back, I don't see why everyone is just acting as if there's no chance he becomes more involved in the passing game. I think that he very well could be, especially in games that they're losing. On top of that, I just believe that they're going to ride him like crazy because he's one of the best true running backs in the NFL. And I don't necessarily think that Kansas City is going to be able to stop him. So, assuming this game doesn't get out of hand early, I could see a big day for Nick Chubb, especially with the amount of goal line touches, how good Cleveland's offensive line is, and everything. And at 7,200, it's really not a price for his ceiling. It's more kind of a price for, more or less what he's been doing on a weekly basis. So I do believe that Nick Chubb is a really interesting tournament option, just because literally no one's talking about him, and it's not like the matchup is overly difficult or anything. That you say you like that one?
Yeah, no, I wasn't considering him really either, but everything you said makes actually the most sense. I like that call.
Thank you. We can move to wide receiver, starting out with our favorite three. Sam, we'll go back to you on this one.
Yeah, so it's funny. Like, I have never been one to say that I think Sam Darnold is a good quarterback at all. Now his team was bad, but despite all that, I love DJ Moore. I think I like him this year. I just like him as a player. I hope Darnold can get him the ball. I mean, obviously things change year to year, so all these stuff we reference with a grain of salt. I mean, DJ Moore last year saw nearly 40% of his team's air yards. And that's crazy. I mean, I think he is a stud. Obviously, we know the Jets defense is a joke. And I think this could be a really good spot for him. And, last year, I think he averaged about, 7 or 8 targets a game. Next one, as I mentioned earlier, since I don't mind Jimmy G, I love Brandon Iuke this week. He's only 5,700. Detroit defense sucks. I think he's, besides Kittle, is obviously the best receiver on the team. And I think he's even has room to expand on how well he did last year. He has, I like him because he has a decently healthy ADOT, and he doesn't, I just think he's so good, especially on DraftKings, because he just can rack up some of your receptions. And then lastly, I think that, and I could be wrong on this, I think T. Higgins is getting a little popular as the one that everyone's calling a sleeper. He's not a sleeper anymore. Jamar Chase is the flavor of the month, or the flavor of the, I guess, Brian like Pitts. And so I really like Tyler Boyd. I think he's going kind of overlooked. Tyler Boyd was great last year with Burrow. I think he's a stud. I love him in the slot. And you might know, Bales, off the top of my head, I don't remember who plays slot for the Vikings, but I think Boyd is a great guy who's cheap and also can really rack up a lot of receptions, and someone that Burrow is thrown to a lot. So those are my three guys.
Yeah, I think you made a good call there, because Minnesota's not really a defense that I'm so scared of that I just completely move off of them or anything. No. T. Higgins initially just immediately popped to me. I do think that he's a great play, which I believe also kind of solidifies what you're saying, as most people probably shift that way over someone like Tyler Boyd. And Jamar Chase, I think he's going to be good. I think there's some question marks around him early in his career, and they could really just look to pump him the ball early on to get those, questions out of his head, to get more confidence in him. But I don't necessarily think that's the route they go. I think it's, T. Higgins, where he's going to pop off, and Boyd is still just super, super solid. So I do like that call. Ben, who are you looking at wide receiver?
Yeah, so favorite overall receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, 7,800 on DraftKings. Given my interest in the Titans passing game, I'm going to have to run it back with someone. Obviously, that's going to be Hopkins. Tennessee's another really bad defense. Obviously, that's why we think that game's going to shoot out. And, I mean, Kyler and Hopkins were really good last year. Obviously, they lost Fitzgerald. They brought in Rondale Moore, who I really like as well, at 3K. I think both those guys are really strong plays. Outside of him, T. Higgins, I know you guys were just kind of talking about him. I think, like, for all formats you can use him. Cash in particular, you probably are going to use him. 4,700, he's cheaper than Chase, which I don't understand, considering, even though I think Chase is really good. And he's never played a game, right? T. Higgins was really good last year. And I like Cincy as home dogs. They're going to be throwing the ball Burrow, I mean, he was leading the league in pass attempts for a while before he got hurt last year. So I do think they're going to throw the ball a lot as well. So I do like T. Higgins. I don't know. I don't want to mention two Cardinals. I really like Rondale. I like Marquez Callaway for cheap too, but I'm gonna go with Julio Jones. No one's gonna play Julio Jones. Another guy people have faded on. He's under 7K. It's just such a good game, and he's gonna tower over all these DBs for Arizona. It's still Julio Jones. He's healthy. I mean, it would make sense for Tennessee to. Obviously, AJ Brown's really good too. You can use them both, but I mean, it would make sense for them to want to throw to him in his first game in Tennessee, right?
Yep. I think that's a really good call. It's kind of funny because my number one that I was looking at, DeAndre Hopkins, obviously I already talked about Kyler Murray. He would be the pair that I would do would be DeAndre Hopkins. And then my number two that I was going to say run it back with is AJ Brown. We already know how good he is. Everyone was projecting him to have just this massive year when Tennessee had no one to take any pressure off of him. Now, what are you going to do? You're not going to really double AJ Brown that much because then you have Julio on the backside for literally whatever he wants to do. So I actually think that even though the volume kind of gets taken away from AJ Brown, he doesn't necessarily need it. He's already proven that he's super efficient. And when you look at them adding Julio, to me, it just feels like it's going to open up the passing attack that much more. And I'm not necessarily saying that it doesn't hurt him because obviously AJ Brown with 150, 200 targets would be absolutely crazy. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think it hurts him the way that other people do, just because he's going to now get a little bit more one-on-one matchup. So I think if you're paying up, DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Brown definitely makes sense. Both solid pivots, I think, off of Stephon Diggs, who's probably one of the highest owned wide receivers on this entire slate. And then you talked about T. Higgins. I think he's in a great spot. I guess the guy that I'll go with, I feel like he kind of is going a bit overlooked, and I'm nervous about his role, especially when you look at like their implied team total and everything. But man, Elijah Moore at 3,000 is so cheap, and it's basically the same price as Rondale Moore. But then you have guys at 3,400 is Marquez Callaway, who's projecting for more ownership. Marvin Jones is 3,600, which is obviously just a ridiculous price tag. Even guys like AJ Green is 38. Jalen Waddle's 36. I've seen a few people talking about him. But Elijah Moore is...
I am not playing a chalky Marvin Jones. I will not. There's just no way.
I did want to ask you guys, how chalky do you actually think Marvin Jones gets? Because very clearly people are going to play Callaway over Jones. Like, that seems obvious to me. Are people playing multiple wide receivers for under 4,000 this week? Is that like a thing that's going to end up happening on Sunday?
Yeah, because then like everyone can just jam in CMC.
You can play all three. You can play Kamara, CMC, and Dalvin Cook.
I guess that's fair. I'm on the other end. In cash games, I would 100% play Marvin Jones. Houston has no defensive back that's even
I would play
And
Rondale Moore over Marvin Jones.
In cash.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're cash.
Crazy.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
Cash,
you're crazy.
It's just a better game.
Yeah.
It's a better game. He's going to be on the
He
field. He's going to be the slot receiver. It's not like he's going to be part-time. Like, he's going to be on the field a lot. And it's a better game.
I agree.
I think
I
don't
agree
know.
that the game's
he's
better.
cheaper too, man. I don't know. I would play Rondale Moore instead of him, personally.
I think you're crazy. I think you're nuts.
That's not the first time I've been called
100%
crazy on a
agree.
podcast. It's all right. It's all right.
I think in cash games.
I'll just go into. Can I just go to my fade is literally Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones. I figured that was coming. Yeah, go ahead. Dude.
No, I mean just like it's purely because of the ownership. Like, I don't even think Marvin Jones is like that bad or that tremendous or whatever. But like, first of all, I like Trevor Lawrence as much as the next guy. But we don't like know what he's going to be. He's literally never played the game. So to me, playing an uber chalk cheap receiver, I know Houston is like a Pop Warner team, but like, I don't know, dude, that's just at chalk. That just seems like an easy pivot for me. If Marvin Jones chalk burns me week one, I can move on from that. I'll be able to move on.
You're getting burnt. I'm telling you right now, you're getting burnt. Marvin Jones, good receiver. People have been saying that he's going to slow down for the last what seems like at least 50 years. It hasn't been happening. Ben, who are you fading?
Maybe I could stomach him in cash, but definitely not in tournaments.
Yeah, fade.
In tournaments, I think you're 100% viable. I agree.
I'll go with Marvin Jones for mine too, since I already established I'm playing Rondo more
Double
over
it.
him. As far as a pivot, I'm gonna go with Devonta Smith to run back my Matt Ryan stack with. Devonta Smith's someone like career-wise I wasn't super bullish on because he's so small. Like I just can't see him staying healthy. But as long as he's on the field, I mean he's gonna be really good. We've seen what he can do. He did it in the SEC in college. In the short amount of time we saw him in the preseason, I mean, he was electric getting off the line. No one could keep up with him. He's going to get open. I think he's going to be their best receiver this season. I think he's going to be the highest scoring rookie receiver in terms of overall fantasy points for the season. So I like him at his price. I don't think he'll be high owned either.
I think that's a good call. I'm going to change up my fade. My fade is also 3,600, which kind of puts us in a weird spot because we kind of need to see where the ownership goes. I didn't necessarily think this guy was getting that much ownership. But if you go ahead and go to dfskarma.com and look at Sam's projections, which I highly recommend it, guys. Fantastic projections. Sam puts in a ton of time, not just plugging them because they're on here. They're actually fantastic. Jalen Waddle at 3,600 against New England is projecting for some of the higher ownership of more or less the cheap guys. Like he's not projecting as one of the highest owned wide receivers on the entire slate, but of the cheap guys, he's projecting extremely well. And Jalen Waddle is a guy that I will kind of take a stand on and say that I'm not playing week one. I already said that I didn't love Tua that much in this matchup. I don't think that Belichick's going to get burned by a speedster like Waddle. So I probably would put him on my avoid list if he ends up being chalky.
I actually like Tua this week. He was going to be my pivot at quarterback, but have we all not forgotten that Devontae Parker owns Stephon Gilmore? I mean, why would you not just play Parker if you're going to stack Tua with someone? I don't want to play Waddle.
But Gilmore's not playing, so he has no one to own.
Yeah, he owns the Patriots in general.
I think you can.
I think Tua stinks. So
Tua. I like Tua this season. I think that game is gonna be like faster than people think. I think that like with Cam out and Mack in, they'll play a little bit faster. The Dolphins actually played decently fast with Tua last year. He looked good in the preseason. I think that game's kind of sneaky, but I would rather play Parker if I was gonna stack Tua with somebody.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead. No, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying I get what you're saying. I was to say my pivot is I don't even know this really counts as a good pivot because I don't know how it's still early in the week, but I do think people will definitely play the Vikings and Justin Jefferson, but I feel like Adam Thielen can end up going overlooked. He's going lower in drafts. He's less expensive. Jefferson's like known as this very explosive guy, but their ADOT and everything and like their targets per game are pretty similar. And I think Thielen, after kind of a down year last year, I think he was hurt for a little bit. I think he's a great play and someone that was so consistently rostered all the time. And I don't think he'll be very much owned. I don't see him being higher than 5 or 7%, maybe 8. But that's my favorite pivot up top or towards the top.
Yeah, I think you just picked a great option. Someone else that I would look to just for my specific pivot, I do think that Robbie Anderson makes an interesting play just because of more or less the history between him and Darnold. They obviously had fantastic chemistry when they played together in New York. They looked good in the preseason at times together. So I do think that Robbie Anderson makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't look like he's going to feature that much ownership. So if you do like that game where we've already all talked about how we like Darnold, I know Sam likes DJ Moore. This is an offense that can support multiple wide receivers. It can support CMC. There's no real issues with it. We saw a game manager at best, Teddy Bridgewater, support multiple wide receivers. So I do think that you can use both DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson together. You just obviously don't want too many pieces of that offense. You would kind of have to do that as more of a tournament pivot in terms of a stacking where you're just not playing Christian McCaffrey. You spend up at the other running backs and then hope that they can outscore him, obviously. And then you're looking for Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore to get the touchdowns in that situation. I believe that does it for wide receivers, though, which leaves us on to tight ends. Ben, I will come to you to start this out. Who are your favorite tight ends on this slate?
Yeah, tight end is pretty simple for me. Kyle Pitts, obviously at his price, he's going to be super high owned. So, probably it's tough to play chalk tight ends in tournaments, especially when it's their first ever NFL game. But I do really like him at that price tag. And then two cheaper guys for me, Tyler Conklin, number one, talked about him on the cash process. Bump with Irv Smith out. I obviously think it's a good matchup, and he's someone that we played a couple times last season. He was running a lot of routes. I expect that to continue this year. And then Gerald Everett, fitting with my Seahawks theme. He could find some spots in Indy zone, and obviously he has juice, right? This is someone we liked when he was on the Rams. Hopefully takes a step forward with Russ if they go with the more pass-heavy attack this year. So I like both of them for cheap as well.
Yep, nailed that. Sam, who are you looking at?
I like, obviously, Pitts' price is so stupid. So he's going to be insane chalk, and he should be. I really like Austin Hooper. I think people kind of forget that before he got hurt last year, he was getting like a lot of targets. They're in a game where I know it can be tough because, I don't know, you never know. But, they should be probably trailing or more likely getting murdered. And so they should be throwing the ball a lot. I think he's pretty solid, only 4,000. He saw last year, it's a little skewed because, again, he didn't play all the games. And he saw a decent amount of target share, a decent amount in the red zone. So I like him. And then, dude, you guys like Tannehill, Anthony Ferkser, 3,200. Dude's a stud. He's not really, but I think he's a decent option that's, not, I don't think anyone's going to own him. I get they have a lot of weapons, and it's not like I'm just smashed, but he saw last year, and it wasn't the only guy either. And he saw like 12 to 15% of the team's red zone targets. He saw, and his targets per routes run was over 1, which like very few tight ends even have that. Or over 1.5. So I think he is an interesting kind of dart where, the floor is low, but I think if Tannehill could easily find him in the end zone twice in a game, and so I think he could be huge value there.
Yeah, I like those calls as well. I think you guys basically nailed the majority of options. I think like if you want to kind of move towards the mid tier a little, and this will go with more of a pivot off of Kyle Pitts for 200 more, Logan Thomas. I'm expecting a really big year out of him with Fitzpatrick at quarterback. So I do think if you want to pivot off of Kyle Pitts, Logan Thomas makes a really good option. And then again, I'll just use another pivot off of Kyle Pitts. Jonnu Smith is only 4,100. I think that we're going to see some weird stuff from Belichick with him. We kind of saw him playing in the backfield a bit in the preseason. I feel like this is kind of a situation where Belichick's just going to use the double tight end with him and Hunter Henry. They're going to come out and be, two of the top tight ends where both are fantasy relevant. I think of the two, I would prefer Jonnu Smith. And at 4,100, I'm not exactly sure how long the price tag is going to stay that low, depending on the type of offense that they opt to run. So it's a shot that I'm willing to take in tournaments if you just want to pivot off of, the rookie making his first game, even though the price is ridiculous. It does make sense to move off of it. But do either of you two have any pivots that you really like? I know like tight end's kind of a weaker position generally. So where are you guys looking for kind of the lower owned guys?
I don't know, Ben, do you guys think that, I don't know how owned Dallas Goedert will be. Do you think he will be pretty owned? With Devontae, I don't know. I haven't kind of learned now. That would be my pivot off of, just basically those top 3 guys. I will say I'm cheating and taking 2 here. I don't know how I think a lot of people like TJ Hawkinson, but with Jared Goff, I feel like people just don't want to play him. And Hawkinson, I don't know if he's going to be owned because he's just so much cheaper than Kelsey and Kittle, but I think both Hawkinson and Goddard at similar prices are kind of interesting, especially if the Falcons offense does look good. I think Goddard could see a lot of targets, and hopefully is not getting injured this year. He can have a good season.
Yeah, I don't think either of those are too high owned. I think they're fine in tournaments. I completely agree. I actually really like Hawkinson as well. Goddard, I'm a little bit lower on, but do think he's fine. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, my pivots would just be like Conklin and Everett, like those guys I named. I don't think they're going to be very high owned. I'm not sure if really anyone other than Pitts is going to be super chalky, just because I think he's like in cash game specifically, he's going to be owned like at such a high percentage. I don't really think anyone else is going to be.
People are literally going to play like Pitts or Kelsey, or drop down to like Tyler Croft if like Herndon doesn't play or something. If he's like the min.
Yeah,
I agree with that as well. There's our position by position. We will move to stacks now. So let's just get a few of our top stacks out here, and we can kind of, discuss what you want to do, maybe talk a little game theory in it. But I will start with you, Ben. What stacks are you looking at here?
Yeah, speaking game theory wise, I do think this Pittsburgh Buffalo game is going to end up chalky because it's easy to fit these guys in. Like, I think Josh Allen's going to end up popular at 74, and then people will want to stack him with Diggs, and then there's plenty of options to run it back with on Pittsburgh. You have Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Juju, like whatever you want to do there. So I do think that game's going to be pretty high owned. I think there's going to be a lot of passing, but I don't love it as much as I like the Tennessee-Arizona game. So that's like number one for me, is just attacking that game, which I don't think that'll be a secret either. People will know by the time we get to Sunday that that's like the top game stack. So I think that one's kind of obvious. Outside of that, Matt Ryan I'll probably stack Matt Ryan with Ridley and Pitts and then run it back with Devonta Smith. I really like that one. And then probably Carolina's my other one. I think you can use DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson, or both if you wanted to. You can run it back with Elijah Moore. Corey Davis is cheap as well. Lots of options with that one. That's probably my main ones I'm targeting, to be honest.
Yeah, I like that. Sam, where are you looking?
I've mentioned these two already. Kind of, I'll just save again. I think my favorite one is probably the Minnesota one. Playing Kirk, Jefferson, Thielen, coming back with honestly any three of those guys. I will say, in terms of like Ben was saying with game theory, I mean, I think the natural reaction is to shy away from if you're playing a Minnesota stack, to not include the running back, but Dalvin Cook is very involved in the passing game too. So I don't think it's really a bad move or a negative EV move to, even if you want to play Kirk, Dalvin, and Jefferson and run it back with someone like Boyd. The other one I'll say is San Francisco. I just think there's a lot of options and they're not that expensive. I mean, playing Jimmy with Iuke, Debo, Kittle, two of those three, and then if he's healthy, I really don't mind running it back with DeAndre Swift, but I also wouldn't honestly mind, if you're not playing Kittle in that lineup, to run it back with TJ Hawkinson. Are you guys playing any Saints stacks? I'm so tempted to play a Jameis stack.
Yeah, so the two games that I was going to outline, because obviously I like Arizona, Tennessee. We've already kind of talked about that, but the two that I was going to outline is one, the total set at 51. It's one of the highest implied totals on the entire slate. You have the Colts against the Seahawks. I think if you want something super cheap, you can run Wentz and Pittman. You get a little chalky there, but when you add someone like DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett back, just because of the way that you're stacking the game, it takes the chalk down a little bit to the point where it's much more I guess you can handle it a lot better. And then the second one that I was going to talk is if you want another thing super cheap, you could stack Jameis Winston with Marquez Callaway. Obviously, you'll be eating a little bit of chalk there, but bringing it back with Devontae Adams once again makes that a little bit easier to kind of plug in, and then you can get different elsewhere. So I think that those two games are going more or less overlooked outside of someone like Callaway. And then obviously Pittman is projecting to get some ownership because T.Y. Hilton's out. But I do think there's multiple different ways that you can go to stack those games. And it doesn't seem like they're getting necessarily that much love, specifically in terms of where they sit on the slate in game total, just because they're both 50 points or higher. And I believe we only have 4 games on the entire slate that have that. So one of the highest, or I guess 2 of the higher projected totals, yet not really featuring that much ownership overall. So I don't know. I do think that both of those are interesting, especially stacks in tournaments. That, I believe, about does it for what we're looking at. Let's end this. We end the MLB podcast with a home run call. Let's end this with a bold call from each of us, completely on the spot. No one, including myself, knew that we were going to do this until right this second. So, Ben, what's your bold call for this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mac Jones, 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns.
I'm guessing you stole that straight from Sam, the Mac Jones lover.
That was so hot. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm gonna say mine is Aaron Jones is a top 3 scoring running back on our slate.
I like both of those. I am going to go with Kyler Murray gets the double bonus on DraftKings, where he throws for 300 plus yards and runs for 100 plus in that game. That's what we have for you guys. But once again, you can get all of our stuff at dfskarma.com. All the links are in the description below for our core plays, our projections, all of our content. Absolutely amazing. We're giving out a ton for free on the site. And then obviously, the core plays, the projections, it's all in our premium, which I would highly recommend that you guys get. If you enjoy the video, please go ahead and give us the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and leave a comment of any questions or comments, I guess, you have below. But until then, good luck on Sunday, and we will be back next week.